Hi everyone. Yeah, it's the 1,000 subscriber special because I finally reached 1,000 subscribers. I think I was at 1,009 last time I looked, so that's great. And I thought, yeah, we'd talk about the Grateful Dead just for something interesting. I had a look at what documents I could unearth and that, and there are a couple of FBI documents, but they're so heavily redacted. The one about them getting busted, I'm just going to show you an article about it, I think, because the actual file is really boring to look at. But there's another FBI file as well. We can talk about that. And for the after show, because there's a conspiracy theory about a Grateful Dead show that I'll read out to you, and I've found this show that we can listen to, and for the after show, just for a laugh afterwards. But yeah, and I'll give it a little while before I begin, because it looks like there was a date error on when I scheduled the thing. It was saying it was next week, so yeah, I'll give people a little while to show up before I start showing you what I was going to show you. Oh, and there's like a ridiculous conspiracy theory about the Grateful Dead that's kind of so ridiculous it's funny. But when I looked into where it comes from, it's kind of heavy as well, who the guy was that makes up this shit. And it's like, well, you've got to look into your sources and all that. So I'll give you a bit. Yeah. So yeah, I can see a lot of people in the chat already saying, well, yeah, they were Freemasons. And you think Garcia and Lee were CIA. Because see, I've been researching this, obviously, only for about a week. I've never been that into the Grateful Dead. But I'd heard that there's proof that they were CIA, and I can't find this fucking proof. Whatever it is, people need to show it to me, because no, there doesn't appear to be a lot of proof they were really CIA. If anything, they might have been like the CIA were gathering research from their crowds or whatever, but without their knowledge, I reckon. If anything, that's just my opinion. Yeah, I've seen Freeman Flies talking about this. That's it's really he swears he was at a Grateful Dead show where there was a forest just behind where the crowd was, the site, and there was men on horses grabbing people and galloping off with them on horses and taking their blood at a Grateful Dead show. This guy Freeman Fly, I think he's off YouTube now. I think he said anti-vax stuff or whatever, so they banned his channel, but. Yeah, that was what he said about the Grateful Dead. He can remember being at a Grateful Dead show where he saw that going on. Which is mad. Men on horses fucking grabbing people and taking them out into the woods and forcibly taking their blood. And you've met him, have you? Met him in a bar in New Jersey. Yeah, because I was obviously talking to their fans. I went to like all the different fan communities I could find and talk to them about and ask their opinion about all this. And they just mock all the CIA theories about the Grateful Dead, basically, their fans. And they're cynical about it, obviously. Yeah, just about they got caught up in it. I mean, all of the bands at this time were used to promote, the psychedelic drugs, weren't they? You know, it wasn't just the Grateful Dead as well. You got to think about it. We had a lot of British bands that were very, very psychedelic. And also how much of it was just marketing because it was trendy as well. How much are we reading too much into it? Was everyone who did anything psychedelic fucking working for the CIA? Or were they just trying to jump on a trend? Was everyone trying to jump on a trend? But what the Grateful Dead did, their music is very weird to be targeted at people from on LSD. What I've heard of their music, it does sound weird, like it was some kind of experimental shit, doesn't it? That you could see why there are so many conspiracy theories about them. Yeah. 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 Oh, the Beatles. There's a lot of weird shit about the Beatles. Yeah. But fucking people read too much into what the Tavistock Institute is as well. Fucking yeah, people have heard a lot of misleading stuff about what they actually fucking are as well. But they are weird. That's what they say about any conspiracy theory where they can't explain who did what. They'll say, oh, and then someone from the Tavistock Institute came in and did it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, really? Yeah, but the Beatles, their first manager, his death, that's a weird thing as well. And the guy who took the photo for their Sgt. Pepper's album cover, and he also did one for the Rolling Stones, is what was it called? At his Satanic Majesty's request, their album. But he took that photo as well. That guy committed suicide under weird circumstances and left a weird suicide note. Suggested he was like burnt out on LSD or whatever, or like trying to practice the occult and fucking did his own head in or whatever, yeah. But that's a weird thing. Another weird thing that's associated with the Beatles. Yeah. Yeah, like I say, I've never really been into them. And yeah, for all I've ever heard was it sounds like music that's designed to freak out people that were on acid. You know what I mean? Not like pleasant music to listen to. That's like Pink Floyd, at least the stuff they made was kind of pleasant to listen to. Like this sounded like it was trying to mess with you, didn't it? That's the thing. Their music. Yeah. Yeah, and Billy Shears. That's the other big conspiracy theory about the Beatles, isn't it? I could talk about that one night because that is quite fascinating. How many people totally believe that as well? That's the Paul is dead theory, that Paul McCartney actually died in the 60s and was replaced. And somehow they've gotten away with it all these years. But I have my own theories on what because the Beatles have actually fed into that as well. You can see it in their, they've deliberately fed into that theory. Probably because, and it's probably just a joke because they think it's funny. But do they use it to distract from other shit about the Beatles that's weird, because the stuff about Brian Epstein and other stuff they was into, and like were they really encouraged to promote LSD by the government as well and shit like that? Yeah. Yeah. Just get the chat. Hated whenever the Dead did Space. What was Space? What do you mean by that? Is that a festival? I don't know. Or a song? Is it a song that they did, or an album, or whatever? Like I say, yeah. And the first article I have is about them being busted by the FBI. You just hated whenever the Dead poorly attempted to make music. Yeah, that's it. I didn't find it that mind blowing, I have to say as well. Yeah, let's start to read this out because this is where there might be some kind of CIA connection because it was to do with the manufacturing acid. Excuse me, just reaching my tea for my tea. It's to do with the manufacturing and distributing acid because it wasn't illegal until 1967, as you'll hear. And there's an FBI file about it, but it's so heavily redacted, it's quite boring to look at. And there are pictures of it in this article. And you can find it really easily. I think it's on archive.org and it's on the FBI's archive site, the vault, they call it, don't they? Yeah. Yeah, well, this is it. Owsley's the one that was making the acid. Yeah, and I've heard his name associated with manufacturing LSD a lot. I didn't realise he actually worked directly for the Grateful Dead. He was their lighting guy, apparently, and used to sell it at their gigs. And right up, and he was busted a year after it got made illegal, as we'll find out. Right. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is the principal law enforcement agency in the United States, focused on domestic intelligence and security. It is the job of the FBI to investigate any person or organization that might be deemed a threat to the United States. While many investigations were focused on political movements and their leaders and terrorist organizations, some focused on other influential groups, musicians and rock and roll bands. Over the years, there have been FBI dossiers on many prominent and not so prominent bands, including Insane Clown Posse, John Lennon, Jim Morrison, NWA, Elvis Presley, Nine Inch Nails, Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, and the Monkees, just to name a few. Articles coming on some of these specific cases in the near future. Stay tuned. Typically, the FBI investigated artists who were deemed to be spreading messages that were seditious or dangerous, or moderately progressive, at least to the status quo of America. That's the first page of the document there. This article is about one such investigation into the Grateful Dead. The Dead were in fact investigated by the FBI, ATF, the CIA, and after its formation in the early 70s, the DEA. The reason for such a wide-ranging investigation was partly due to the fact that the FBI, according to the highly redacted file, believed that the band was creating LSD and distributing it during their tours. I was able to get a hold of parts of the file they made public via the Freedom of Information Act. The FBI file notes that the San Francisco DEA requested assistance in a Title III investigation into the band. A Title III investigation is one in which wiretaps and electronic surveillance can be used. The allegation that the band was creating and distributing LSD at their concerts was rooted in some fact. There was indeed a lot of LSD at their shows. Prior to working with the Dead, their famed sound engineer, Owsley Stanley, had previously synthesized his own LSD in a makeshift laboratory and supplied most of the LSD for Ken Kesey's famous acid tests in the San Francisco area. LSD was legal at the time, but was criminalized in 1966. Stanley ended up being arrested for distributing LSD in 1967. So there was LSD being given out and or sold at Grateful Dead shows, and it was, for the most part, being supplied by their sound engineer. But the connection to the band was tenuous at best. The band was targeted by police raids, such as the one in New Orleans, where 19 members of the touring party had been arrested on drug possession charges. The band ended up having several more run-ins with the law in the years to come. For example, Jerry Garcia was arrested in New Jersey in 1973 for possession of marijuana and cocaine. Drugs weren't the only dangerous thing about the band in the eyes of the FBI. The band also had their ear on a large section of America's youth. The FBI was worried that the Dead might be spreading dangerous ideas like free thinking. Many books have been written on the subject, and many theories have emerged about just how involved the government agencies were in taking the band down. Some have claimed that Jerry Garcia, not only a principal component of the band, but an icon of the counterculture movement, was murdered by a government organization. Most speculated was the CIA. The same claim has been made about Bob Marley, John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, and several others. Other conspiracy theories claim that the concert at Altamont, where the Dead were set to open for the Rolling Stones, was a coordinated effort to undermine the counterculture movement and demonize it in the media. It was certainly easy to do after the tragic events that unfolded at that show. However, that theory hinges on the government getting Hell's Angels to work with them in a coordinated effort. It gives federal agencies a little too much credit, if you ask me. In any case, the FBI dossier on the Grateful Dead shows how seriously the government took the influence that artists have on society. Of course, the FBI has been responsible for a laundry list of blunders when it comes to investigating musicians. Again, more on those coming soon. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on this site, because these sorts of things are always interesting. And yeah, so basically, I didn't realize, Owsley made the acid that Ken Kesey used. So that's all the stuff that's in the electric Kool-Aid acid test. All these acid tests. That's the acid. So the Grateful Dead's lighting technician made the acid that Ken Kesey used as well. Which is interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that is a strange story, isn't it? Yeah, the dentist that dosed the Beatles for the first time. Because I've actually clipped that interview, the part of the interview where he talks about that, and there's a bit where he carries on to talk about when he did it, and what he says was Doris Day's house, but it turns out it was actually what's her name, Zsa Gabor's house they were at. Managed to find out what time he was talking about that he did LSD again in America. That was the next time he did it. But yeah, he said it was weird. He said it was like they wanted an orgy. They were trying to get them to have an orgy, and they ran out after they'd been given the LSD and started driving. Yeah. And he says he sounds pissed off about Timothy Leary as well when he says, "Oh yeah, and we all went through that Timothy Leary shit or whatever." Yeah, he's like That was a weird thing as well. The fact he sounded so disparaging of that, because that's supposed to. A lot of them are supposed to have had. It said Mick Jagger had a nervous breakdown as well because of LSD, and Brian Jones. If you look into it, loads of them are supposed to have had breakdowns, and it might be because they tried to do ego death or whatever, and it fucked them up. They didn't know how to fucking rebuild themselves after ego death or whatever, so they just ended up having breakdowns. Yeah. Yeah, so I've never been a fan of them either. But I've always just been fascinated by this theory that they were CIA. And you wait till you hear the wackier CIA theories at the end, when it's more for just for a laugh. But I want to go over the real information that we've got. And like I say, you can find the FBI file pretty easily, and it's really boring to look at because so much of it's redacted. But it's all about Owsley, basically, and distributing LSD. And it's interesting that they asked for an investigation where they could use wiretapping as well, didn't it? So were they wiretapping the Grateful Dead? And was how much of it also was COINTELPRO stuff where they was looking for their influences, because they were only supposed to be looking for outside communist influences on these bands as well. But what were they really monitoring them for, Yeah. And then, there's another FBI file. Have I got it here? Yes, and this one was weird. I found it strange. But then I got a reasonable explanation for it, and it's really difficult to see. Like they all are. But it's about Jerry Garcia. and he's giving statements about someone being a conscientious objector, and it's redacted. So, like, you can't see who it is. But yeah, I managed to get some people to comment on it. Did some research. What if I go full screen like that? There you go, that makes it a bit bigger, doesn't it? Not on the screen yet. Get on there. That's the one. So yeah, it's one of these terrible photocopies of it. Right. Jerry Garcia, 351 Bryant Court, Palo Alto, California, said that both he and Redacted have been playing steadily in a band, Redacted, and he has last been interviewed in October 1964. Mentioned to the registrant that the latter's claims and views on conscientious objection to military service. He said that in his belief, the registrant has not changed his views in any way, and he still feels Redacted is honest and sincere in his claims. And it gives the date, the 6th of the 7th. No, it would be, there's the American date in it, 6/7/65. Palo Alto, California. And that's all that page says. So he's made a statement about his friend being a conscientious objector there. That's the last page. Sorry, I showed you it from the last bloody page, yeah. So that's the last interview he did. It actually goes back. When is it? The first one. 64. Enclosed to the Bureau, photostatic copies of Selective Service Forms 100 and 150. Letter of transmittal regarding Redacted. So they don't tell you what person it is. Mr. Jerry Garcia, 534 Bryant Street, Residence 35 Bryant Court, Palo Alto, on October 9th, 1964, advised that he had employed Redacted off and on for the past year and 1.5 to 2 years. He advised that his experience with Redacted have been good, and although he is not acquainted with any specific feelings or beliefs of Redacted, known that he generally feels very strongly about his objection to serving in the armed services and is a pacifist in spirit, and he stated that he believed that Redacted is honest and sincere in his claim as a conscientious objector. Yeah, and this just says administrative. It is noted that this report contains an FD 302 interview of Redacted. An attempt was made to locate the registrant's father, Redacted, at the Redacted residence. Right, yeah, and I've already read that out. That's the last page. So he does 2 interviews about this guy, and I thought, what the hell? That sounds really weird. But no, apparently, when you have conscription in America, you can register as a conscientious objector, and you can get your friends to go and make statements on your behalf. And so that's all he was doing. I thought that was really weird. It's like, were they investigating and like Jerry was knocking on him or something? But no, apparently you can ask people to go and speak on your behalf. And I asked the Grateful Dead fans if they could speculate over who it was. And they asked not to be credited, just said credit it to my own research. Thankful. Thank you to the random Grateful Dead fans on the internet. Second FBI call. A friend of Jerry has been informed that they are considered qualified for military service, possibly receiving a draft notice. If drafted, an individual can apply for conscientious objector classification. To do so, the registrant needs to present themselves before the local board and provide explanations, excuse me, along with written evidence of all personal testimonies from acquaintances supporting their claims. It seems that the friend might have mentioned Jerry as a character reference, leading to Jerry being interviewed twice. Once in October 1964 and then again in June 1965. These interviews are documented by the agent or another involved party. Points to consider about the dates found. In 1965, the interview took place just before Phil's first show on 6/18/65, when they were still known as the Warlocks. The redactions B7C are related to unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. The FBI form FD 302 is a standard form used by the government to document interviews. To identify the individual, there are a couple of clues to consider. Jerry mentioned employing the person in a band 1.5 to 2 years before the 10/27/64 interview. If Phil's first show had not occurred yet, it's unlikely to be him. So it's not Phil. Considering the timeline, it raises doubts if the Warlocks were together for 2 years before changing names, possibly indicating involvement with another band or formation. So it could even be someone from another band. If Jerry's statement about employing the person is accurate, it is unlikely to be Weir, as he might not have known him during the 62-64 period. Perhaps he was the initial assumption of the people that were thinking. Another possibility could be Robert Hunter, though uncertainties remain. There is no indication of any wrongdoing or informing involved in this context. So yeah, what he was doing was not anything that behind his mate's back. He would have been doing it on his friend's behalf, basically. Yeah. That's Warlocks. It was definitely Warlocks. Yeah. I've heard that before. Yeah, the Grateful Dead were called the Warlocks before they were the Grateful Dead. But the guy was saying the dates don't even add up for that, so he might have even been talking about another band. But he was saying he employed the person in a band. And yeah. Yeah. Never mind the Warlocks. Yeah, fentanyl withdrawal and dope necrosis are the new bad trips. Yeah, have you heard this about the new the heroin problem that there is? You can have this stuff in it that rots your skin, even if you don't inject it. Even if you only smoke it, you can still get this necrotizing skin disease from the heroin because there's something fucked up in it. It's not real heroin or whatever. Crazy shit. Yeah, Robert Hunter was one of the principal lyricists, was he? Yeah, because like I say, I don't even know their names. Yeah, it's better. The candle looks much brighter now, doesn't it? When the batteries go on it gets really, really quiet. It gets really, really dim. So that was it. I've shown you the second FBI document now, haven't I? And they were busted, and their lighting technician made the acid for Ken Kesey. So yeah, that does seem kind of sus, doesn't it? I do wonder. But their fans, when I was asking their fans about it, most of them are dismissive about it, and there's a couple of quite funny conspiracy theories that was actually, I think they were written by Grateful Dead fans as a troll, or one of them was, sort of thing. Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, it was a real candle. No, it's not a real candle. I'd set my hair on fire with it too easily. A candle that close to my head has to be far away. Yeah, I need to actually use the super glue I bought to glue the moon lamp back together, so I can use that again. Should work. Right. Sorry about that. Cool, yeah, I rushed back to do this and then realised it was scheduled wrong. Oh, we've got 30 people here now, so yeah, sorry about the scheduling error. If you thought it was going to be next week. I repeatedly said at the last stream, I'm sorry about that last stream as well. I just got drunk, didn't I? I was supposed to read out her poetry. I forgot completely to do that. Patricia Grumwinkle's poetry. I'll get around to that. Oh, and next Sunday stream should be a good one. Casey Fields is going to come on the show. And we're going to talk about the back trails, basically. So that'll be interesting. And there's like big stuff going on with Manson YouTube things happening. Other people might start channels and that. So it's getting interesting. Things getting interesting behind the scenes. Yeah, your impression of the agency after having read The Ghost is that they were inept at most of what they tried. They didn't know how they could have, don't know how they could have controlled the dead. That's it, and that's what most of their fans generally say, is these people they were anti-establishment, they wouldn't have willingly done it. I think they might have been tricked into giving over data they'd made or whatever, or letting people actually research people at their shows, not realising what they were doing, and maybe stuff like that. But were they involved in the LSD distribution as well? Because that seems like that became like almost a religious thing. People thought that it was almost like a religious movement and they were doing something amazing and waking up the world or whatever. So could they have actually got involved in the LSD distribution bullshit? Yeah. So that's one thing. Maybe, I think it's possible. The LSD angle of it. But yeah, I have got to get the article open now. Wait a sec, sorry, let me find this article. Let's see, yeah, this is just a post. And if you look into the comments, they argued over who actually wrote this. One person accuses another person of plagiarising it off people. Listen to this. There's been a lot of talk lately about the legendary fake show on 5877. I've kept my silence on the subject for 22 years. Now it's finally time to come clean on the whole subject. The whole idea began back in late 69, early 70. The Department of Defense and the CIA were very disappointed by the way the Vietnam War was progressing. Not only were they losing it, but more importantly, the US public did not approve of the war, and worse yet, weren't believing everything the military said about what was happening. This was an unprecedented event. Every other recent war was viewed positively by the public, or at least was apathy in the case of Korea. Something had to be done. They decided to take a page from the Soviets and experiment with mind control. Together with Disney and a fledgling computer company called Microsoft, they set out to prove that brainwashing could really work on the very people who opposed them, the hippies. It isn't widely known, but Cornell was actually the second test of these mind control procedures. The first occurred in mid-1975 and was a dismal failure. Two major mistakes were made. First, they picked the one time that the Dead were not touring. This created all sorts of problems with the subject audience. The more serious mistake was not updating the criteria of the experiment. Due to typical government inefficiency, they used the 1969 version of the Dead that was playing when the program was conceived. The sudden appearance of Pigpen, who died 2 years earlier, literally blew the minds of those in attendance. 6 months were spent erasing all traces of the show and carefully rebuilding as much of their minds as possible. The subjects were eventually released, and most of them became evangelists, their only lingering memory of the whole experiment being an unshakable belief that they'd witnessed a true miracle. Unfortunately, no tapes have been found from this experiment. That's a real shame, because the version of Dark Star St. Stephen 11 Love Light used was supposedly the best ever. After a few drinks, the original scientists still speak in awe about the music heard that day. By November 1977, everyone was ready for the second test. This time, they learned from their mistakes. A small group of college students were hired to attend shows from 1976 through 1977. Our job was to collect tapes of the Dead performances, select which tunes to use, and to help identify subjects for the upcoming experiment. The location and date were chosen with equal care. It was off day during the tour, and the location close enough to the real concerts to be believed. Of more importance was the late snowfall that day. That unusual and easily confirmed event provided the glue that would hold the implanted memories together. Even now, 22 years later, people remembering that concert use almost identical words to describe leaving the show. Overall, the experiment was a great success. Of course, some people were given slightly different memories. Some, like Teddy Goodbear, remember taping the show and were even provided audience tapes to further cement the hoax. Still others remember getting horribly smashed up front. None of this actually occurred. A week after the concert experiment, a second test was done on the town of Cornell itself. In order to perfect this hoax, the town itself must be convinced that the concert took place. Disney had acquired ownership of all the local TV and radio stations through dummy corporations. Using special chips developed by Microsoft, they played subliminal messages to every man, woman, and child within a 100-mile radius of Barton Hall. For the most part, this programming still holds today, although some people did prove resistant to the message. As far as the source of the music, for the most part, the list posted by Bruce Higgins is correct. The only mystery remaining is the Scarlet Fire that was actually performed by the Dead specifically for this experiment. Since Jerry worked for the CIA, it was easy to convince him and the rest of the band to go along. Plus, he liked the idea of pranking a large group of people like this. The fabled 2677 Take a Step Back rehearsal tape is also from material taped for these experiments. The soundboard tapes in circulation were leaked by Betty O'Connell, who edited the original tapes. I don't know if it was just a coincidence or not, but they were leaked at about the same time as the tapes recorded by Betty Cantor were found. In any event, they became part of the so-called Betty boards. Leaking these tapes also provided the first cracks in the hoax to appear, since the tapes were distributed to people who were not in the experiment and who knew that no show was performed that day. It was necessary to obtain their silence through blackmail, bribery, and in extreme cases, mind control itself. That's how this show came to be listed in all the popular Dead show guides like Dead Base. So what's happened to these mind control techniques used in this experiment? Microsoft has used this power to become one of the biggest, most influential companies in history. They sure didn't become that big providing quality products. It was used to shape public reaction to the Gulf War, and it's also clear that George Bush never understood the full power of these methods. There are also indications that this technology might explain the otherwise unbelievable popularity of rap music. That's the whole story. So yeah, and Grateful Dead fans reference that. If you start talking about CIA fans, they all start saying the name of that gig, and that never happened, man. There's like a joke. That's like a joke conspiracy theory. And the reason they picked that gig is because it's a favorite tape, like bootleg tape of the Grateful Dead that everyone likes. Everyone says they liked, and people claim to remember going to. And they're trying to, it's that they were just trolling the Grateful Dead. But yeah, the idea that they faked a complete Grateful Dead concert. But yeah, the one where they accidentally included a dead member and blew everyone's minds, and they had to actually reconstruct everyone's minds because they all went crazy when they saw the dead member. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. We've got the recording. It was definitely a real show. This was a troll. Someone wrote it to troll Grateful Dead fans, and they laugh about this. That was why I read it out. Yeah, because whenever I found a thread about Grateful Dead and the CIA, they were all shouting the name of this show, and it wasn't real. And I managed to trace that down. That's like the conspiracy theory, but it's just a joke amongst Grateful Dead fans, basically, about CIA conspiracy theories. Yeah, but there's a weirder one. Yeah, that's it. Greatest performance, and it's on YouTube. I found it on archive.org. We can listen to it for the after show. I was going to play it. Yeah, is it right? We've been going 39 minutes, so I'm going to get on with reading out stuff. The CIA was catching it from Congress investigations at this time. Might have been shutting things down, actually. Yeah. Sorry, just what you said in the chat. But yeah, I love it when people make up the really elaborate ones about, and they had to mind control half the audience to convince them that it really happened. And the town was subliminally influenced to believe that this show had happened. An entire town, everyone within a 100-mile radius. Yeah, right. Of course. Evening, Russell. Yeah. The cat is actually on my lap. You can't see him. Yeah, he's curled up on my lap. He'll probably stand up at some point and you'll see him stick his leg in the air. Yeah, and the other thing I want to read out before I read out the conspiracy theory, because I just wanted you to hear a bit about who this guy is. And it kind of ties into recent stuff like the QAnon stuff and all that. And he's sort of like guys like Mary Terry and that sort of thing. It's a guy called Lyndon LaRouche. Older Americans would have definitely heard of the guy. At least. I found this article in the CIA reading room, of all places, as well. But this is a newspaper article about him from 1986, 28th of March, 1986. LaRouche Group, low on the political fringe, gets mainstream scrutiny after Illinois primary. By Ellen Hume. Washington, the British Crown is in fact the head of the drug lobby. The International Monetary Fund is engaged in mass murder on a larger scale than the Nazis because it created the AIDS epidemic. The conspiracy to take over the world is led by Zionists, the KGB, the British Intelligence Service, and cults, including Yale University's Skull and Bone Society. That is the world, according to Lyndon LaRouche, two of whose followers stunned the Democratic Party in Illinois last week by winning the primary nominations for Lieutenant Governor and Secretary of State. The question is whether their high-profile victory will backfire as people scrutinize LaRouche's extreme views and his well-financed group called the National Democratic Policy Committee. Mr. LaRouche is a one-time Marxist who more recently has allied himself with the ultra-right. His group, formerly known as the National Caucus of Labour Committees and the US Labour Party, has a history of harassing public figures and is currently under investigation by federal and state officials for credit card fraud and other activities. His young, generally well-educated supporters see him as a Plato-like figure who alone can save the world from financial collapse and nuclear war. And Mr. LaRouche, who has run for president 3 times, says he plans to run again in 1988. Surprisingly good connections. The 63-year-old, former self-employed computer operator, has surprisingly good connections, portraying himself as a consultant with a private intelligence network he met in 1981 with then Mexican President Jose Lopez Portillo in 1983, with the late Indian leader Indira Gandhi to discuss the world monetary system. He also has won the ear of some Reagan administration officials. LaRouche met with people in the White House, the CIA Interior Secretary James Watt, until publicity about the meetings caused officials to back off, says Norman Bailey, the former chief economist for the National Security Council and now a private consultant. A White House person asked me to meet with them, Mr. LaRouche and his associates, says Mr. Bailey, who adds that he found Mr. LaRouche's information to be valuable, even though he disagreed with his tactics and theories. The LaRouche Group claims to raise enough money for a $30 million annual budget, but some of its financial activities are questioned by law enforcement authorities. Federal and state prosecutors say solicitations by LaRouche followers have been used improperly to help Mr. LaRouche obtain nearly $1 million in federal matching funds for his presidential campaigns. For years, his well-dressed young followers have collared passerbys at airports with catchy signs such as "Feed Jane Fonda to the whales," signing up backers to pro-nuclear, pro-Star Wars, anti-drugs, anti-AIDS, and other campaigns, without mentioning their LaRouche affiliation. They ask people to subscribe to official-sounding publications like the Executive Intelligence Review and Fusion magazine, or to join groups. Credit card charges. Federal officials say hundreds of purchasers have been overcharged on their credit cards, and others unwittingly have ended up as political contributors to Mr. LaRouche. U.S. Attorney Mr. William Weld, in a recent Massachusetts court filing, says a continuing federal investigation indicates an extensive nationwide pattern of the unauthorized use of credit card numbers by LaRouche related entities and his individuals. The Federal Election Commission recently extracted $54,000 repayment and $15,000 penalty against the LaRouche organization after accusing it of willfully and knowingly submitting false and misleading information in order to receive federal matching funds in 1980. For example, the commission described how a man named Harold Harper bought $40 of publications, and unbeknownst to him, the money was listed as his political contribution, eligible for federal matching funds. Janice Hart, the LaRouche follower who was the successful Democratic nominee for Illinois Secretary of State, and her husband, Robert, appeared to have signed money orders that were improperly represented as being eligible for federal matching funds. The elections panel said in a 1982 deposition that Hart's denied buying the money orders and said they could not recall making the contributions. They weren't charged with any violation. Mr. LaRouche, who operates out of a heavily fortified estate in Leesburg, VA, denies all charges of wrongdoing. While he has aligned himself more with the ultra-right in recent years, he retains the conspiracy theories previously promoted by his former Marxist groups, which were known for harassing public officials and unions and for physical violence in some disputes. There haven't been any violent clashes between LaRouche's followers and other groups in recent years, but there have been some harassment incidents. When Henry Kissinger and his wife were walking through Newark Airport in 1982 on his way to heart surgery, LaRouche follower Ellen Kaplan shouted at him, "Do you sleep with young boys at the Carlisle Hotel?" Mrs. Kissinger grabbed her by the lapel, prompting Miss Kaplan to file assault charges that were later dropped. More recently, one reporter critical of LaRouche encountered leaflets inviting neighbours to a gay coming out party at his house. Another found leaflets detailing her purported prostitution ring. New Hampshire reporter John Prestage recovered a dead cat on his doorstep. Each successive day, his LaRouche stories appeared in the Manchester Union Leader. In a trial last year in which Mr. LaRouche tried to sue NBC for defamation after it aired 2 reports on him, he was instead ordered to pay $202,000 in damages to the network. NBC charged in federal court in Alexandria, VA, that LaRouche followers made repeated threats and posed as NBC and Senate aides to falsely cancel an NBC interview with New York Senator Daniel Moynihan. In that case, Mr. LaRouche testified that he hadn't had any income for the past 12 years or filed any income tax returns. Judge James Kacharis concluded that Mr. LaRouche was completely lacking in credibility and that he lives like a millionaire. Member was brainwashed. Former members of his group claim in affidavits filed in the Alexandria court that Mr. LaRouche runs a totalitarian cult that controlled every aspect of your life by cutting off outside friends and family. "I do not feel that I was brainwashed," testified one former member, who said that even though the group has ties to the Right to Life movement, members were encouraged to have abortions because you can't have children during a revolution. In testimony, LaRouche followers denied the former members' charges. LaRouche scoffs such charges in a telephone interview. He describes his group as a loose philosophical network of thousands of people whose income is derived from the sales and publications of contributions, an intelligence consulting service. Others put the group's membership at about 600 in the US and another 600 in Europe. And he says the upset in Illinois is only just the beginning. Something has broken loose in the American political press, says Mr. LaRouche. Observes he is the only officially declared candidate for president in 1988, and adds, that means I'm the front runner. So yeah, that's who Lyndon LaRouche is. And yeah, I'll get to reading out. Oh, there's the cat's leg. Look, you can see the cat's leg now. That's it. But yes, that's the kind of bloke he was. He defrauded the electorate, and he's worse than guys like, well, Mary Terry made money out of it, but not as much money as this guy made. You know what I mean? He made millions and defrauded people, declared money for match funding when it shouldn't have been and all that sort of crap. These people really are bad, And but he used to come out with these really insane conspiracy theories, just to get people listening to him. Right, let me scroll down to where it is. And here's an interview with nutcase presidential candidate Lyndon LaRouche. LaRouche, he was a pro-Nazi, Carl Jung. He was an occultist, satanic cultism. I don't know if he went as far as Aleister Crowley did in identifying Satan, but it was the same structure. Alan Dulles, CIA director, was very close to this crowd personally. As to what was going on in Alan's mind at this time, I don't fully know. But then you get the MK Ultra operation. 60 greatest conspiracies, that must be who's interviewing him. The mind control operation? That was Alan Dulles and LaRouche. That was Alan Dulles' period operation, which was run together with the occult types in British intelligence, such as Aldous Huxley and also Gregory Bateson, who created, for example, the Grateful Dead, out of an MK Ultra operation at the Palo Alto Veterans Hospital, where he was supervising. The first United States ground rock group of that type, the Grateful Dead, was generated as a British intelligence operation by the Occult Bureau of Huxley and Bateson out of the Palo Alto Veterans Hospital, where they were doing LSD and related experiments. Why would British intelligence put out a rock group? Well, this is part of the Satanism business. Call it the counterculture. Call it a Dionysius model of the counterculture. Rock is essentially a revival of ancient Dionysic Bacchic rituals. Lots of people are, or long periods of time, in that kind of particular rhythmic ritual, which was probably struck upon empirically many thousands of years ago for this type of cult. It does have a relationship to the alpha rhythms of the brain. It does produce these sorts of states, if combined with a little alcohol and more, shall we say, mood-shaping substances, with youth, with funny sex. This does produce a profound change of a countercultural type. Another word for it, New Age. The long-term New Age of Aquarius. People were experimenting with various utopian models, constructing small groups experimentally, which were considered New Age types. How to create experimental types that might survive the aftermath of a general nuclear war. Was this the whole trend continued after Dulles' departure? He was not He was not the controlling factor. I would make him the evil Black Widow spider. I wouldn't make him the evil Black Widow spider. He was part of it. The operation goes way back. But in the United States, this particular operation goes back to about 1938. The Nazis were operating in the 1930s out of Hollywood and elsewhere with an occult astrology racket, kind of intelligence operation. At that point, the Huxley operation out there, which was already established, the marijuana operation and so forth in the 1930s, was already hooked up. 1963, I would say, was a watershed year for the explosion of this thing, around the LSD Beatles proliferation. And then you have another one in recent years where explicit Satanism has really exploded. So yeah, that's Lyndon LaRouche. So yeah, that's the guy who's the source for the fucking main Grateful Dead conspiracy theories by the sound of things. Listen to what he was like. He sounds like he was a nutcase and a fraudster. So do you really believe him? But yeah, he was saying that basically it was the British intelligence made the Grateful Dead, basically. Just to fuck with you. And yeah, like I say, I don't believe that at all. And I think the guy sounds like a lunatic. And there's a lot more written about him, yeah, and how strange he was. Yeah. Yeah. It's over 60 shows. Well, did you hear what I just read out? The thing about the fake show. You have to watch this on playback. Can't read it out again. But there's a show, and I think the conspiracy theory is made just to troll people that believe the Grateful Dead are CIA sort of thing. It's like a joke conspiracy theory. But they say that there's a show, and it's like the most popular live recording, basically. And they try to tell people that this show never happened. The CIA made it up, and they've implanted false memories in people's heads. And yeah, very early Microsoft used these special chips to brainwash everyone within a 100-mile radius of the venue that it had happened and shit. Yeah. Yeah. Bad licorice. I've heard of there being shows where there was bad acid distributed as well at Grateful Dead shows. And Altamont, that's the other thing that everyone talks about with the Grateful Dead. Everyone roundly blames them for Altamont because they recommended they use the Hells Angels for security. And they ran away, didn't they? When they arrived and they saw how bad it was, they just jumped straight back in their helicopter and fucked up again. They didn't play. Yeah. Yeah, and so that was the bloody crazy conspiracy theory. And we're in 54 minutes in now. And if we go to the after show, when I've been going an hour, we can listen to the show. Yeah, and it sounds like interesting stuff's going on as well. There might be more Manson YouTube channels popping up, but other people doing YouTube channels. And so, yeah, if you're interested in the Manson case, there's a whole lot of information going to be put out and presented through YouTube now. And I'm going to try and, contact some other YouTubers and see. Because people are interested in the Son of Sam case, aren't they? I could try and get a Son of Sam expert to come on the channel. Yeah, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed as well, please do. Keep me over 1,000 subscribers. And make sure you've liked the stream, if you like the video, because that helps promote things. Sorry, just watch the chat for a minute. See what people's opinions were, but yeah. And like I say, I heard the rumour that the Grateful Dead. People started saying there is now proof, and so I just accepted that. But yeah, I went out and I've been searching all week for this so-called proof, and no, there is no direct proof that they were CIA. But someone was saying there's an interview where one of them confesses it. But how do you know he wasn't being sarcastic as well? That's another thing. I think it's more likely they were sort of, duped into letting the CIA do research on their audiences and shit like that, but they didn't knowingly serve military intelligence, And this will become more clear what I mean by this when I read you from Michael Hollingshead's biography. Yeah, because what's going to happen in the coming few months, hopefully it will mean I don't have to work so much on presenting the Manson stuff, so it will give me more time to work on the other stuff I want to talk about. So I want to talk about all this LSD research stuff. And there's a lot of stuff like, Pink Floyd. I need to read stuff about Syd Barrett, because there's more stuff known about all these people than ever before. I've always been interesting. Oh, they returned it in an anniversary performance, did they? Yeah. Just let me check the one I found is definitely it then. I don't want it to be the anniversary one. Oh, too far. 77, it's definitely the 77 one. Yeah, I've got the right one. It is on YouTube as well, but I thought, it's easier to just play it off a different site. I'm not going to get copyright struck there. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I think, they were pawns in the game. All these musicians were, and they got duped into doing it. I think a lot of them were kind of pissed off about it. Because, like I say, look for it, because I've done it. It's a clip of John Lennon being interviewed. And he says something about, and he sounds bitter about going through all the Timothy Leary stuff, whatever the hell that means. But I think he realised that they'd been duped into promoting LSD. Basically, they all knew it and they were pissed off about it. They didn't like it. And I know Frank Zappa always said interesting shit in interviews. I'm going through all the Frank Zappa interviews I can find. And he talks about the LSD burnouts. I found an interview where he's talking about all the LSD burnouts at the end of the 60s. He said, I don't think we've seen the last of the LSD burnouts and all that. And Frank Zappa took part in a lot of anti-drug stuff, anti-drug events and that. He says some really interesting stuff, though, about the music industry and the entertainment industry in general, controlling people. Television. He really said a lot of stuff about television. It was very weird. Yeah. Timothy Leary shared. Yeah. That I've heard a rumor as well that he was commissioned to write that by the Tavistock Institute. Timothy Leary's dead. You heard that one as well. Yet to see evidence of that, but yeah. Because the Moody Blues. If you don't know, by the way, which one is it? Ray Davis? No, not Ray Davis. He's the Kinks, any so who was? What was he fucking called? But not Justin Hayward, the one everyone thinks of from the Moody Blues. The other one. Or one of the other ones. He wrote Timothy Leary's Dead, a song called Timothy Leary's Dead. And there's now a rumour that the Tavistock Institute commissioned them to write it. And Timothy Leary was actually due to come over here and start promoting his LSD workshops and that, but he got busted in the US and went to prison before he could come here. And John Lennon was going to sell him Come Together for his election campaign, the song Come Together. But he never used it, so he changed it slightly and released it as a Beatles song. There's another trippy case. Yeah. That's a lyric, from Timothy Leary. My dad loved the Moody Blues. I've heard all their stuff quite a lot, and I've played that on my after shows a few times. I think Timothy Leary's Dead, but that's the one, there's a rumor it was commissioned by British military intelligence to get people interested in Timothy Leary. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll go to an after show in a bit, and we'll listen to some Grateful Dead. Like I say, it'll be good to get into this. And I found there's a whole book. So I mentioned Operation Julie on another stream, didn't I? Which is a big LSD bust that happened in Wales. It actually happened in Wales. But it involves people all over the world. And they say that at the time, the LSD that they busted was like 80% of the world's LSD. It was all being made in this little fucking cottage in Wales. And it's a funny story because the coppers, as they were busting them, accidentally touched it and absorbed acid. So they all ended up tripping. But it's actually a really complex, long drug operation in that as well. So there's just like one bit that's like a bit funny, and the rest of it's like really heavy. But yeah, they busted a huge worldwide drug ring, and there's a whole book written about it that I've got to read. But that'll be good to talk about. And there's a bit about Operation Julie and that Albion Dreaming that I've still got to read. Yeah, that's it. All these different slang terms for acid in it, and all the songs you hear that was named after this sort of shit. So many drug references weren't there that they missed, but then other songs that got banned for like actually quite mild shit that they thought was a drug reference as well. It's really funny. What they missed and what they let go, and what they actually banned. Yeah, that's a reference to Operation Julie, isn't it? Yeah, Julie's been working with the drug squad. Yeah, I don't see a lot of people talking about that actually on YouTube. So yeah, that will be an interesting case to cover. So yeah, I'll have to see if there's any documents available for that. Even there might be. I'll have to look at our National Archives site. Like I say, I found Rolling Stones documents, and you can get Brian Jones's coroner's report as well. But that's in a book that I found. So you don't need to request that. It's already been published in a book. Who Killed Christopher Robin? But that kind of is what's it called? Tom Keylock's whitewash of it that entirely blames Frank Thorogood. But a lot of people now saying, people now he's dead, people might be not too scared to speak out and might finally admit that he was more responsible for Brian's death than Thorogood was. Yeah. Yeah, and that's fucking wrong one. Lucy in the Skull of Diamonds there. Yeah. Little Milky's still coming out with all the names for the peace pills was PCP, weren't they? They weren't LSD. People thought they was LSD, but were sorely mistaken. It sounds like that Lois Dodd Delatra possibly accidentally bought PCP when she was told it was MDA and overdosed. Yeah, like I say, and I found another weird, crazy PCP murder. I think it was actually a rapper as well. It's a rapper that did it. Yeah, that was really grim. So that's another thing I can cover in the future. Right, I've been going for an hour now. So what I will do is I will end this one and I'll come back. Give me 5 minutes so I can make a cup of tea. I'll come back and we'll listen to this Barton Hall Grateful Dead show. I haven't listened to it, so I'm reacting to it for the first time as well. And maybe we can even watch Invocation of My Demon Brother again, because there'll be more of you here this time. Which is the Kenneth Anger film that Bobby Beausoleil appears in. You actually see Bobby Beausoleil in it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, stick around for the after show. You'll get the notification when it goes live. We'll be both on Facebook and here. And I will do a stream on Thursday night again as well, but that'll be a more general stream. Not even decided exactly what I'll talk about yet, but it could be anything. I will try and actually read out Patricia Krenwinkel's poems as well, because there's so little that's published about her, is there? And there's this one thing is the poetry she wrote for that book, Pros and Cons. Yeah, excellent. Right, so I'll end this now and give me 5 minutes, and we'll have a good after show, hopefully, since it's the 1,000 subscriber special. See you in a bit, guys.